The first time my wife laughed at my old truck, I thought she was having a bad day. The second time, I realized she was ashamed of me. The third time, she did it in front of another man. That was the day everything changed. My name is Noah Bellamy. I am 37 years old, and I used to believe that if you treated people right, the people closest to you would eventually understand your value. I was wrong. For 11 years, I drove the same faded blue pickup with a cracked dashboard, a stubborn passenger window, and a tailgate that had to be lifted twice before it latched. It was not pretty. It had rust under the wheel wells and a coffee stain on the bench seat that never came out. But that truck had carried me through the hardest years of my life. It hauled parts when I was broke. It pulled stranded cars off wet roads. It sat outside hospitals, job sites, auctions, repair bays, and empty parking lots where I ate dinner from a paper bag because I had no time to go home. To me, it was proof that I had survived. To my wife, it was an embarrassment. Her name was Aria. When we met, she liked that I was simple. That was the word she used back then. Simple. Steady. Real. She said men who flashed money made her tired. Then money started flashing at her. It started small. She stopped sitting beside me in the truck when I picked her up from work. She would say she had meetings, or she was tired, or she had already called a ride. Then she stopped letting me park in front of restaurants. Then she stopped inviting me to her office events. I told myself marriage had seasons. I told myself people get restless. I told myself not to make a war out of a woman wanting nicer things. Then Dorian Vale showed up. You would have noticed him before he said a word. Red supercar. Black sunglasses indoors. Watch big enough to guide ships through fog. The kind of man who did not enter a room so much as announce himself to it. He was not handsome in a quiet way. He was polished in a rented way. Everything about him looked chosen for a photo. I met him outside a charity auction Aria had begged me not to attend. I arrived late because my truck had overheated 2 blocks away, and I had to wait for it to cool down. When I pulled up, Aria was already near the entrance, with Dorian leaning against his car like he came with the building. He looked at my old pickup, then at me, and smiled. "Man," he said, "that thing's still legal to drive?" Aria laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a polite laugh. A full laugh. That sound did something to me. It did not break my heart all at once. It put a crack in it and let the cold in. I walked over, wiped my hands on my jeans, and said hello. Aria did not kiss me. She did not touch my arm. She looked at the truck like it had followed me there against her wishes. Dorian extended 2 fingers instead of a handshake. He said he was in high-end acquisitions, which is what men say when their real job sounds less impressive. He said he had cars everywhere. He said my wife deserved to be seen in something better than a farm truck. I looked at Aria, waiting for her to correct him. She adjusted her earrings and looked away. That night, inside the auction hall, Dorian bought attention more than he bought anything else. He bid loudly. He told stories loudly. He spoke to waitstaff like they were furniture with legs. Every time he laughed, people turned. Aria glowed beside him. I stood 10 feet away, feeling like the man who had been invited to his own replacement party. By the time we got home, she did not even pretend. She walked in, dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, and said, "I can't keep doing this, Noah." I asked her what this meant. She looked through the front window at my truck. "That," she said, "the rust, the struggle, the smallness. I'm tired of defending a life I don't even want anymore." I remember that word. Smallness. I had built our life quietly, but not small. I paid the mortgage when her startup job collapsed. I covered her mother's hospital bills when no one else could. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I never made her beg for anything. But I did not say any of that. When someone has already decided you are beneath them, evidence sounds like pleading. So I asked, "Is there someone else?" She did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. 2 weeks later, she left with 3 suitcases, a silk scarf, and the diamond bracelet I had bought her after selling the first company I ever built. She thought it came from overtime. That was the part that almost made me laugh. Aria knew I worked in vehicle logistics. She knew I consulted for dealerships. She knew I spent years building software that tracked title transfers, fraud flags, auction histories, financing risks, and exotic car inventory across 5 states. What she did not know was that I owned the company behind it. Not because I hid it to test her, because when you grow up with people counting your money before they count your character, privacy becomes a locked door you stop explaining. Black Ridge Exotics was one of my holdings. It was the most exclusive dealership in the city. Private elevators, glass floors, cars with velvet ropes around them. Clients who did not ask the price unless they wanted to be laughed out of the room. I owned it through Bellamy Motor Group. Aria thought I was just a consultant who came in after hours to fix computer problems. That was what I let her believe. After she left, I did not chase her. I did not call Dorian. I did not post sad quotes. I did not beg mutual friends for updates. I disappeared quietly and let them enjoy the attention. And they enjoyed it. At first, I heard about them from people who thought they were helping. Someone sent me a photo of Aria in Dorian's passenger seat, laughing with her hair blowing across her face. Someone sent me a clip of Dorian revving the supercar outside a rooftop lounge while Aria leaned on the door and waved at the camera. Someone sent me the worst one. It was a short video. Dorian was filming my old truck from across a parking lot. My truck was parked outside a parts warehouse because I had stopped there after a meeting. Dorian zoomed in on the rust and said, "Ladies, if your husband pulls up in this, start making better choices." Then Aria appeared beside him. She looked directly at the camera and said, "Some upgrades are overdue." That video got shared around the city for 3 days. I watched it once. Only once. Then I opened my laptop and did what I should have done the moment I met him. I looked up Dorian Vale. High-End Acquisitions was a costume. The red supercar was not his. It belonged to an exotic rental fleet out of another county. He had rented it first for a weekend, then kept extending the agreement with cards that barely cleared. He had 3 missed payments on a leased sedan, 2 civil claims from photographers he never paid, and a habit of posing in front of cars listed for sale, as if he had just bought them. The watch was a replica. The penthouse he posted from belonged to a cousin who listed it as a short-term rental. The charity bids from the auction had not been paid. Dorian was not wealthy. He was a man standing in front of other people's mirrors, hoping nobody checked the reflection. I should have exposed him then. But revenge that happens too early only teaches people to deny. I waited for a room where denial would have nowhere to stand. That room arrived 6 weeks later. Black Ridge Exotics was hosting a private test drive event for 12 clients. No public entry, no walk-ins. Every guest vetted. Every vehicle insured before the keys were touched. There was a silver coupe flown in from Italy, a green track car with less than 400 miles on it, and a black hypercar that collectors had been calling about for months. The event was not for influencers. It was for buyers. The morning list came to my office at 7:30. I had coffee in one hand and a parts invoice in the other when I saw the names. Aria Bellamy. Dorian Vale. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I checked the invitation source. Dorian had not been invited. He had purchased a forwarded QR code from a client's assistant and edited the guest names on the confirmation page. Worse, he had submitted a bank letter to reserve a test drive slot. The letter was fake. Not sloppy fake. Confident fake. The kind of fake made by someone who had gotten away with things because people liked the car he pulled up in. I called Priya Noland, my general manager. "Let them in," I said. She paused. Priya knew who Aria was. Everyone at Blackridge knew my divorce had begun, even if I had never discussed details. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said, "but keep the floor quiet. I want normal service. No scene unless they make one." "They usually do," Priya said. She was right. They arrived at 1:15. I watched from the second-floor office through the glass. Dorian came through the doors first, spinning the key to the rented supercar around one finger like a trophy. Arya followed him wearing white and gold, the kind of outfit people choose when they expect to be photographed. She looked different. Not happier. Sharper. Like she had turned herself into someone expensive and was afraid to move too naturally in case the shine cracked. Tessa Rowe, one of our senior sales advisors, greeted them with her usual calm smile. Dorian did not give her a name. He gave her a performance. He said, "You probably know who I am." Tessa said, "I know everyone on today's confirmed list." That annoyed him. He leaned closer and lowered his voice, but not enough. "I'm looking for something serious, not a toy. Something that says I've arrived." Arya touched his arm and smiled, like that line impressed her. Tessa led them toward the black hypercar. Dorian walked around it slowly, recording with his phone. He angled himself so his reflection appeared in the paint. He talked about adding it to the collection. He asked if we could hold off other buyers while his people moved funds. My finance director, Omar Keene, stood behind the reception desk watching the fake bank letter on his tablet. He glanced up at my office. I nodded once. Peak 1 came when Tessa asked Dorian for proof of insurance. His smile thinned. He said his assistant handled that. Tessa said no test drive could begin without verified coverage. Dorian laughed. "Do you know how many cars I own?" Tessa said, "I know how many are in your name." The air changed. Arya noticed it. Her eyes flicked to Dorian. He recovered fast. He put an arm around her shoulders and said, "Baby, relax. They do this with new money. They just have to feel important." New money. In my own building. I almost respected the audacity. Peak 2 came 10 minutes later, when Omar walked over holding a printed sheet. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Mr. Vale," he said, "we are unable to validate the financial document you submitted." Dorian gave a short laugh. "Then validate it again." We did. "Call the bank." We did. The showroom got quieter. Not silent yet. Just quieter in that way public places get when people sense something ugly is becoming interesting. Dorian looked around and smiled at the other guests as if this were all part of the experience. "Look," he said, "I don't know what little system you people use, but I'm not here to be treated like some window shopper." Omar said, "That is not the concern." "What is the concern?" "The concern is that the document appears to be altered." Arya pulled her hand away from his arm. Not far. Just enough. Dorian saw it and snapped at Omar. "You're making a mistake." Omar said, "That is possible. That is why the owner requested to speak with you personally." That was my cue. I came down the stairs in my work boots. Not a suit. Not a designer jacket. Boots, dark jeans, and the same denim overshirt I wore when I helped unload vehicles from enclosed trailers. Arya saw me first. Her mouth parted, then shut. Dorian turned, annoyed, expecting a manager he could bully. Then he saw me. For half a second, his face did not understand what his eyes were seeing. To him, I belonged outside near my old truck. I belonged in the background. I belonged somewhere people like him could point and laugh. I walked across the showroom slowly. Every step sounded louder than it should have. Dorian smirked because smirking was the only tool he owned outright. "You work here?" he asked. "That explains the outfit." I stopped beside the black hypercar and looked at the phone still in his hand. "I do work here," I said. Arya whispered, "Noah." I did not look at her yet. Dorian chuckled. "Great! Then maybe you can tell your coworkers to stop embarrassing themselves. I'm trying to buy a car." I said, "No, Dorian. You're trying to borrow an identity long enough for people to believe you." His smile twitched. I turned to Tessa. "Has the vehicle been unlocked?" "No, sir." "Good. Sir." That tiny word hit the floor like a dropped wrench. Arya's eyes moved from Tessa to Omar to Priya, who had come out from behind the glass office. Every employee was looking at me with the kind of attention people give the final signature on a contract. Dorian noticed too. "What is this?" he said. Priya stepped forward. "Mr. Bellamy is the owner of Black Ridge Exotics," she said, "and the controlling owner of Bellamy Motor Group." The showroom went dead silent. Not quiet. Dead silent. Phones lowered. Conversations froze. Somewhere near the coffee bar, an espresso machine hissed and stopped. Arya stared at me like I had become a stranger in the space of one sentence. That was the moment she understood who owned the dealership. Dorian's sunglasses were still hanging from his collar. His hand went to them, then dropped. He laughed once. It came out thin. No, that's not true." I looked at him. "You walked into my dealership with a fake bank letter, a stolen invitation, and a rented car you keep calling your own." His face hardened. "That car outside is mine." I nodded toward the front windows. The red supercar sat by the curb under the afternoon sun, attracting the exact kind of attention Dorian lived on. "No," I said. "It belongs to Emberline Rentals, and they've been calling about it since yesterday." Dorian's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I continued, because I wanted every lie to land where Arya could see it. "The watch is a replica. The penthouse videos are filmed in short-term rentals. The charity bid you made the night you laughed at my truck was declined twice. And the bank letter you submitted to my staff was not created by the bank." Quote. Arya turned to Dorian slowly. "Tell me that's not true," she said. He looked at her with irritation, not regret. "Don't start." That was when I finally looked at my wife. Not my wife anymore, really. The papers had not been signed yet, but the marriage had ended in a parking lot when she laughed beside him. She looked smaller now. Not poor. Not ugly. Just smaller in the way people shrink when the fantasy they chose begins to rot in public. I said, "You left because you thought my life was rust and struggle. You thought his was status and speed." Arya's eyes filled, but I did not soften. Behind me, Priya handed me a tablet. On it was the incident report, the fake document, the forwarded invitation, and the rental company notice. Every fact lined up cleanly. No yelling needed. That was the thing about truth. It did not need volume. I signed the bottom of the report and handed it back. "Cancel their access," I said. "Permanent ban from all Bellamy Motor Group properties." Priya nodded. Dorian stepped toward me. "You can't ban me from a dealership." I smiled a little. "That sentence explains why you're in this situation." A few people in the showroom reacted. Not laughter exactly. More like pressure releasing from a room that had been holding its breath. Then peak 3 hit. The front doors opened, and 2 men from Emberline Rentals entered with a clipboard and a tow authorization. Dorian turned pale. Arya saw them. She saw the logo on the clipboard. She saw the red supercar through the glass. Her voice dropped. "Dorian, what are they doing here?" He backed away from her. "This is harassment." One of the rental agents asked, "Dorian Vale?" Dorian said nothing. The agent continued. "The vehicle is 11 days overdue. Payment extension denied. We are here to recover company property." Every head in the showroom turned toward the windows. Through the glass, a flatbed rolled into position behind the red supercar. The same car he had used to mock my old pickup. The same car he had used to sell my wife a dream. The same car he had built his entire personality around. A hook dropped. A winch cable clicked. The front wheels began to climb. Dorian lunged toward the door, but Boone from security stepped into his path. Boone did not touch him. He did not have to. He was 6'4" and built like a locked gate. "Please don't make this worse," Boone said. Dorian pointed at me. "This is because of him. He set me up." I shook my head. "You set yourself up. I just gave you a room big enough for the truth." Arya covered her mouth. The red supercar rose onto the flatbed inch by inch. Outside, people on the sidewalk started filming. Inside, the buyers watched with expressions ranging from disgust to amusement. Dorian's phone buzzed over and over in his hand, probably messages from people seeing the spectacle in real time. He tried one last move. He turned to Arya. "Baby, tell them this is a misunderstanding." Arya looked at him, then at me, then at the car being hauled away. For the first time since she left, she seemed to understand that the life she had chosen was not built on luxury. It was built on captions. Dorian snapped, "Arya!" She flinched. That flinch told me more than any apology would have. She had not traded a poor husband for a rich man. She had traded peace for performance. I took the envelope from Priya. Inside were the divorce documents my lawyer had prepared after Arya left. I had not rushed them. I had not chased her. I had waited until the moment was clean. I placed the envelope on the hood of the black hypercar between us. "Your lawyer can contact mine," I said. "I'm done discussing our marriage in rooms where you only recognize value after someone else confirms it." Arya reached for the envelope, but her hand trembled. "Noah," she said, "I didn't know." That almost made me angry, because she thought that was a defense. I stepped closer, keeping my voice low enough that she had to listen. "You knew how I treated you. You knew what I gave. You knew who stood beside you when things were hard. What you didn't know was what I owned." She closed her eyes. I said the sentence that ended it. "You didn't leave me for love. You didn't even leave me for money. You traded loyalty for a rented image." She went pale. Dorian had nothing left. No car. No test drive. No buyer act. No fake wealth to hide inside. He stood near the entrance, with security on one side and the rental agents on the other, watching his supercar disappear down the street. Then Priya handed him a document. "What is this?" he asked. "Notice of trespass," she said. "You are no longer permitted on any Bellamy Motor Group property. If you return, we will call law enforcement." He looked around for sympathy. There was none. Arya whispered my name again. This time, I did look at her. I looked at the woman who had laughed at my truck, laughed at my life, laughed at the version of me that worked quietly and loved loudly, and never asked her to clap for it. I did not hate her. That surprised me. I had carried pain for weeks, expecting it to turn into fire. But, standing there, watching justice arrive without me raising my voice, I felt something better. Release. I nodded to Boone. "Please escort them out." Dorian shoved the notice into his jacket and stormed toward the door, but the automatic doors opened too slowly, making him stand there for one final awkward second while everyone watched. Arya followed behind him, clutching the divorce envelope. At the threshold, she turned back. Her eyes moved from the black hypercar to the employees to me. Then past me, through the service entrance window to the side lot where my faded blue pickup was parked between two delivery vans. For once, she looked at that old truck without laughing. The doors closed. The showroom stayed silent for one more beat. Then Priya said, "Mr. Bellamy, your 2:00 buyer has arrived." I turned away from the doors. "Good," I said. "Let's sell him a car." And that was where I left them. Outside, the rented dream was gone. Inside, the truth still had the keys. Some people only respect value when it comes wrapped in status. But loyalty, dignity, and character are worth more than any car parked outside. The people who mock you when they think you have nothing are showing you exactly who they are before success makes the lesson expensive. If this story hit home, like the video, subscribe for more revenge stories, and comment below. Would you have exposed Dorian right away, or waited for the dealership moment?